Hello, my dear friends. Today I continue to bring you a very interesting story. Prepare your seats, fasten your seat belts, and let's go. It was my birthday, a day I had been eagerly anticipating for months. Every detail was planned meticulously. A cozy party at our house with close friends and colleagues. My husband, David, and I had put in a lot of effort to make the evening unforgettable. Among the invited guests was my boss, Andrew, a man infamous for his arrogance and challenging personality. He thrived on being the center of attention at work, and while I tolerated him professionally, I didn't particularly enjoy his company. Yet, for the sake of courtesy and professionalism, I decided to send him an invitation. The party started off wonderfully. Guests mingled, laughter echoed, and the atmosphere was light and cheerful. My work friends and close colleagues chatted with David while I ensured everyone was well-fed and had enough to drink. David's warm, reassuring smile reminded me of how much he loved these moments, and it made me feel content. Then Andrew arrived. He walked in with his signature smug look, scanning the room as if he owned it. He approached me with an exaggerated smile and exchanged pleasantries, completely ignoring David, who stood by my side. I brushed off the tension, attributing it to Andrew's usual behavior, but I had no idea what was coming next. As the night went on and Andrew had a few drinks, his behavior grew louder and more obnoxious. He began telling jokes, bragging about his successes, and constantly demanding the room's attention. It was tiresome but typical of him. At one point, he joined a group of us standing near the bar, and then he said something that felt like a slap across the face. "You know," Andrew slurred slightly, grinning in a way that made my stomach turn, "if only you were my girlfriend instead of my assistant, life at the office would be so much more fun." The entire room fell silent. My heart pounded as his words hung in the air. I felt frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Andrew chuckled, as if he thought it was all harmless fun, but the sting of his words was undeniable. Around me, my colleagues' eyes widened in shock, yet no one said anything. My face burned with embarrassment as I wished I could vanish. David, who had been chatting nearby, turned to look at me. His expression darkened in an instant, shock and anger evident in his eyes. Trying to maintain composure, I forced an awkward laugh and said, "Andrew, that's completely inappropriate." My voice trembled as I tried to defuse the situation, but Andrew simply chuckled again, oblivious to the discomfort he had caused. David's glare hardened, his fists clenched at his sides. The joyful atmosphere of the party had been shattered, leaving an unbearable tension hanging in the air. His fists clenched, but David didn't say a word. Instead, he excused himself and walked to the far side of the room, leaving me standing awkwardly with Andrew and a group of uneasy guests. The lively atmosphere that had filled the house earlier had completely dissipated. What was meant to be a joyous celebration had turned into a nightmare. People began quietly leaving, the awkwardness hanging heavy in the air. Andrew, oblivious, kept drinking and chatting, looking for anyone willing to humor him, entirely unaware of the havoc his careless comment had wreaked. Later that night, after the guests had left, the silence between David and me was deafening. As we cleaned up the remains of the party, he barely spoke a word. I kept trying to apologize, but he didn't seem to want to hear it. When the last glass was put away and the lights dimmed, David turned to me, his voice cold and trembling. "I don't understand how you can keep working for him after what he said tonight," he said, his eyes filled with anger and pain. His words hit me like a brick. "David, it's just Andrew being Andrew," I said, trying to brush it off. "He's an idiot, but he doesn't mean anything by it." David shook his head, frustration evident on his face. "You don't get it," he said, his voice tight. "He didn't just humiliate you tonight. He humiliated me. He crossed a line, and I can't just stand by and let that happen again." His voice trembled as he continued, "You need to quit. I don't care what you say, but if you choose to keep working for him, I don't know how we move forward from this." His words left me stunned. David, the calmest, most collected man I knew, was standing in front of me, broken. "David, I can't just quit," I pleaded, tears welling in my eyes. "I've worked so hard to get where I am. It's not about him. It's about my future, my career." He looked at me with desperation, his voice cracking. "If you choose that job over me, I don't know if I can keep doing this." I saw tears glisten in his eyes, and the weight of his words hit me harder than anything Andrew had said. I stood there, torn apart. I loved my job, but I loved David more. The tension between us simmered into hours of painful silence and arguments. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to quit, but I also couldn't bear the thought of losing him. The aftermath of that night lingered for weeks, casting a shadow over every conversation. It wasn't just Andrew's thoughtless words that caused the damage. It was how they exposed the growing cracks in our relationship, the stark differences between my professional aspirations and David's emotional needs. The night forced me to question everything: my marriage, my career, and the choices I had made. And as for Andrew, he carried on as arrogant as ever, blissfully ignorant of the devastation he'd left behind. This story reminds us that the words we say are a weapon that can cause great damage. Sometimes we say things unintentionally, but they have a profound impact on the people around us. Therefore, try to control your words well. Thank you for watching today's video. For more meaningful stories, don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel. Your support is a great source of motivation for us. See you again in the next stories.